the way we looked at each other, looked at society, and it really affected us. And it has done a lot to our mental health in many ways.
We saw how much we needed each other when so many people were separated and couldn't be together. We realized, wow, this is an issue and it's impacting mental health. And we're going to talk about that in the state of the church as it is today with Tova Kreps after We Are Messengers. And God be the glory.
Mornings with Eric and Brigitte here on Moody Radio 89.3.
And it's hard to imagine, but as we approach March 2025, we realize that we're just 5 years since the world kind of shifted on its axis. We began using words we really weren't familiar with, the social distancing. We realized how important we were to each other.
To a point, it was no fun at all. To another point, it was kind of fun that we kind
For
of slowed down.
Introverts were like, yes.
I was home. We were spending a lot more time as a family.
We were
playing,
walking outside. We were doing
board
lots
games.
more of that. So there were some aspects that I think we realized the importance of physical activity more and doing less and slowing down. But it was also a very difficult time. You think about the kids, especially in education and being separated from their friends, and a lot happened, and I think one of the other things is we realized the importance of mental health. Tova Kreps is joining us in studio with Wellspring Wellspring Counseling. And Tova, I think before then, maybe people thought that was just kind of an extra thing when we talk about mental health, not really important lesson. But then we realized, no, this is a major issue.
It really is, and thank you for having me today. I think we had stigmas. We sort of thought all of us were normal or just mostly normal, or there were people with mental illness, those people with a problem. And so we didn't know that. But I think what happened in COVID is that people realized that normal people, if you give us enough stress, can tip. And so then it was like, oh, so I can be relatively okay normally, but when I have a lot of stress, I feel very anxious. I feel lonely, I feel depressed, I feel these other things. So it normalized what those of us in the field have always known, which is we're all sort of on a spectrum from mental illness to normal dysfunction, as I call it, to all the way the other end, emotional athletes. So it's just we need to move people up that spectrum. But after COVID, everybody knows it matters.
Well, and I think the sports world was a little early to understand that. More so, it was before COVID actually happened. The sports world was trying to figure this out, and they were really figuring out that these athletes are feeling that pressure. They're not reacting to it well. There's issues with, all things alcohol and drugs and things like that. And they started to really affect how can we help these. And so they started having people on staff to help these athletes. That was something even before COVID hit, I think.
I think in schools, too, colleges have moved counselors in. So we consider resilience to be kind of a measure of how much stress you can tolerate. So if you think of an athlete, the athlete can tolerate more weights, more endurance, that kind of thing. And so I think it's true in the mental health world, too, that how much stress you can tolerate and bounce back from or not revert to really negative coping mechanisms like addictions, then that's resilience. So we realize we need to help people be a little bit more resilient under stress.
And in society, there's more openness to talking about this. We're seeing that even with insurance coverage. They're saying, okay, it's not just the broken bones we need to cover. We need to cover people being able to go and talk with somebody.
Yeah, and in our counseling center, we try to do insurance. The payments, the reimbursement rates were so low, we just couldn't handle it. But now we can, and we're excited to be adding that back in. The insurance companies have been pressured to pay reasonable rates, which they didn't do before at all.
It makes such a difference. I was talking with a friend just this week who has been just recently seeing a counselor more, and it's been a few weeks, and the counselor said, so how's it been going? And the response was, well, I still have I'm dealing with the same things, but I'm realizing I'm able to deal with it better, and I'm sleeping better at night. The pressures are still there, but she's dealing with it better by having that person she can really freely talk to and not feel like this person's going to judge me. I mean, it makes a big difference to have someone like that in your life.
It does, particularly lack of judgment, and then the help of developing those resilient skills and just bouncing it off and feeling more normal. That you're just working on it.
And hopefully the stigma is less, like you said, right? You don't have to feel like, well, I'm crazy if I need to go talk to someone. We all need to talk with somebody. We all need a safe person we can speak to. And having someone who's trained is even better.
Yeah, and we feel like in our field that the people we respect the most are the people who come to therapy because they have the courage to do it. They have a desire for wellness. And so those are the ones who come. So we haven't had a stigma for a long time. But yeah, and particularly in the church, there's been a lot of people who have problems and then the rest. And so I think that's really improved in a wonderful way.
Yeah.
Well, there is an increase in this issue, mental health issues. There's an increase. The statistics you gave us, 18 to 34-year-olds, 50% increase in the awareness of this. So what's causing that? What is happening here besides everyone having a cell phone in their pocket? What other problems are causing these issues to bubble up?
Well, the theorists are working hard at that because suicide is up, depression, anxiety, particularly in young people, is up. So we're not totally sure about that. We have, so the theorists say, where you started with, I can't ignore our cell phones, our devices, because it is actually considered one of the major issues. And so it's a combination of the constant interruptions, the speed of life that we have now. We used to have to wait for snail mail to come, so you had a little space between things. Now there's no space at all. There aren't weekends. Things are happening all the time. So it is a major effect on things. But I think there are other things. So discord in our society, political discord, sort of a loss of trust in the government and the leaders. So there's a I don't know who to turn to, my truth, your truth, which I don't believe in, by the way. But there's just a sense that it's unstable. And so that increases stress. One of the things is that we have multiple stress factors, just too many at the same time. You can also talk about our overstimulation. There's a book called Dopamine Nation, and I don't recommend it necessarily. It's got some graphic things in it, but she hits on something, which is that the constant stimulation makes us have this constant dopamine rush. So it's really an addiction to many things, like our cell phones or scrolling or gaming or all sorts of other things. And so they've now shown that increases anxiety and depression. Just the constant overstimulation as a whole.
So getting back to 1979, is that helpful for us, where we actually
turn back the clock,
found a magazine, read the newspaper, opened up a book, went to church on a Wednesday evening? I mean, are these things that we should probably get back to, or is that not going to be helpful at all?
I think it'd be very helpful. I don't know if it's possible. Because AI, I don't know that we can, but I suspect that we'll have more of a movement. And we've seen some of this in business. When you walk in the room, you put your cell phone in a box. You drop it off, and you have moments or retreats of pulling away. So I think maybe there's hope for modifying it and kind of recognizing this is affecting me, and I want to be focused. I want to be present. So I think we could work at increasing some of that. We'll never go back to
1979. Yeah. We changed back the clocks, but we can't change back the years.
1979. 10 years was 10
I
years
did
old.
too.
Well, Tova Kreps is with us today. Kreps, am I saying that right? Kreps.
It's Kreps.
Kreps, thank you. So Tova Kreps is with us. Wellspringmiami.org is the where you can go to find out about her organization that's helping to bring mental health issues to the forefront now, especially in the church and in Christianity. We talked about destigmatizing. Sometimes we think, well, if you're dealing with emotional issues, that's just something you just pray about and you move on, right? Shouldn't that be enough?
Well, I do think that the church at large is a little behind the times in this. And I think it comes with good reasons. So I grew up in the church. I grew up in the mission field. And I believe the Bible is enough. I believe God is enough. And I believe that if Christians did it right, we could counsel each other and we could do that well. But we're human, and that's a little hard. But I do think there is a holdout that says everything that's in your mind is spiritual or knowledge-based. And so we can moralize or tell people this is what the Bible says to do, but we're not necessarily attending to the fact that maybe they can't. So I believe there are real organic issues. There is PTSD, which is totally a brain issue. There are things that are in addition. And so we browbeat people. You wouldn't go to your knee surgeon and expect them to only read the Bible to do your knee surgery, because we recognize there are skill sets that are beyond. There's science, and science, I believe, always validates God. The more we study, we always come back to what he said all along, but the Bible is not a textbook for science. And so the same thing is true of the mind. The brain is an organ, and we need to admit that and address that and recognize people are complex. Sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes it's moral, sometimes it's a lack of Bible knowledge and understanding, and sometimes it's mental health.
Are you saying that the counselor and the pastor should be working almost hand in hand with the congregation to bring help about?
Yes. So I think one of the things that would help is for people in the pulpit, and some of them do this very well, but some never touch it. There's some statistics about how little mental health is talked about in the pulpit, and it's very small. And so I think someone in leadership to just normalize depression or to talk about that, just like they talk about let's pray for so-and-so for health reasons, but just even if you don't make that public, just acknowledging that's true can really help people. Yeah.
Well, you said there's a spectrum, though. I mean, there are some minor issues that just a couple conversations are going to help.
Correct.
There's some major struggles and issues that you'll be working with for the rest of your life, and that I think for the pastor that can be a little daunting, almost, right?
It can be. Most of the pastors who refer to us on a regular basis sort of have I see 2 to 4 sessions for someone who comes for pastoral care. When it gets beyond that, or when they see the mental health issues, because they have some training too, they'll pass it to the professionals. And I think that's nice. Wellspring works. Our offices are within churches. We partner with churches and pastors, and we equip pastors and leaders in the church. So I think it's the perfect dovetail. So we refer to them for discipleship, for Bible teaching, for theological questions that could be controversial, and they refer to us for some of those deeper long-term issues or deeper issues that get complicated.
What are some of the areas that Wellspring specifically specializes in when we talk about some of these mental health issues?
Yes, well, we have therapists, a good chunk of them, 20 to 30 at a time, and some interns, but and they see everything. But we specialize at Wellspring in trauma recovery. It's our niche. It's when we are a nonprofit, so when we raise funds or get grants, it's always around trauma recovery. And if I can get to tell you why,
yes,
yeah. So I believe that the bad things that happen to us create beliefs. They create internal and even biological triggers and things like that. So what happens to us that's bad doesn't necessarily damage us, but what we believe because of that can. So for instance, if I walk away from a terrible event and I think, I'm worthless because this happened to me, God doesn't love me, all of this kind of person is unsafe, all of these kind of fears and stigmas that we develop, and negative things about ourselves, about God, about other people. So if we walk away with those beliefs, which are embedded instantly in the trauma right away, then we can carry that into our marriages, into our life. But I believe trauma is curable. It really is. Not that you'll have no scars, but that you're not having an open wound. And so by helping people take that off the plate, curing that, healing that, coming out of it with appropriate beliefs about ourselves and others, then it affects all of our other mental health issues. So it could be in a marriage. It could be all different ways that those negative things have affected us.
We were talking just a moment ago about going to the dentist. You said trauma is curable. So is a cavity, but I still go back to the dentist.
Correct.
I mean, that's kind of also your purpose too, isn't it?
Correct. It's very similar to the physical world. So you do wellness things in the physical world. You treat illness, and you attend to it to maintain it.
What would you say to someone who's listening today who's like, yeah, I've been noticing something a little off, and I've been thinking about reaching out to a therapist, to a counselor, but maybe I'm okay. Maybe you could just keep praying and I'll be fine. What would you encourage them to do to take a step towards mental health?
Well, I think kind of looking for a safe place, recommendations from people, a place to land that you can trust going to. Obviously, talk to family and friends and church people first, but if it's still lingering, then coming in, making a call, making an appointment. It can always be a one-time consultation where that you just say, hey, this is where I am. I'm a little concerned, and they can say, just do these self-help things, move on. Or they could say, let's work on this with you. Or ideally, the client comes in and they set the goal. for, this is what I want to do better. Help me.
Yeah. And Wellspring is a great place to go. As you said, you specialize in trauma, and starting with children, teens, adults, couples, it's all there. And we've got a link to wellspringmiami.org right at our website, ericandbrigitte.org.
Tova, thank you for coming in and really bringing us some hope here for many friends this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me come.
Here's the afters, and God is with us. A check on your news, traffic, weather, and sports coming up.